What's an adolescent?
An adolescent?
Yeah.
Someone who's gone into puberty.
Someone who's gone into puberty. Had Aisha gone into puberty at 6 years old?
At the age of 6, no.
No. So she wasn't an adolescent then, was she?
Right, but it doesn't mean that she can't make her decision on certain.
No, it really does. Do you think that Saudi Arabia should allow 6-year-old children to marry?
Again, like I said, with regards to people, they vary. Like, I've already explained that, as you said. I've explained to you the situation. I said if I was in the position of Abu Bakr...
Which wasn't my question. My question was, do you think that Saudi Arabia should allow 6-year-old children to marry?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Ladies and gentlemen, that should shock you. So, the question is, the charge is Mohammed is a paedophile.
I'll put it on focus.
So the charge is Mohammed is a paedophile. So we've got to first define the term paedophile. What I mean, I think the term is uncontrovertible. A paedophile is someone who is sexually active with children, which obviously therefore implies that we define what a child is. A child, and I think this is also incontrovertible, a child is someone who is mentally and physically distinguishable from an adult in that they are prepubescent and they don't have the same mental capacities in terms of making decisions that adults do. Do you want to modify any of those definitions, change any of those, add or take away? Are you very happy with the definitions? Right. Okay. So let's start with the engagement of Muhammad to Aisha. What age was Aisha when she was engaged to Muhammad?
According to the sources.
According to the sources. According to Islamic sources.
Well, put the mic on his mouth.
With regards to the engagement, I can't say 100% I know about that. With regards to the consummation of the marriage, 9 years old.
9 years old. So the point that I would make to you, if you want to stand in the middle, bro. If you want to.
Actually, you do, Billy.
Yeah.
Stand in the middle.
Hold it between us.
We can do. You've admitted, and that's fair enough, that you're not familiar with the sources. I am.
With regards to the engagement.
Let me finish. Yes, exactly. You're not familiar with the sources because we're starting with the engagement. About the sources. Let me tell you what the sources say. Sahih al-Bukhari.
As far as I know, it's 6, but I don't want to misquote.
It is 6 years old. That's Sahih al-Bukhari. Now, or do you believe that a child of 6 years old, are you stood here saying that children at 6 years old can agree to marry, that they have the mental faculties to understand what they're entering into, and therefore you would argue for a change in the law that allows 6-year-olds to agree to marriage? Is that your position?
So my position, with regards to marriage of Aisha radiallahu anha, may Allah be pleased with her, is that when you look to the advancement when it comes to the development of boys, girls, the advancement towards puberty,
Yep.
it varies depending upon geography.
Yes.
They advance at different ages.
Okay.
When it comes to the women in the hotter climates,
Yep.
they advance more quicker than, for example, the women in milder climates such as here in Europe.
Yep.
This is something I'm sure that you'll agree with.
No, I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with
it's
that?
It's a completely false argument. Totally false, and it's not supported by any study at all. None. Studies in childhood development, and let's be frank, Western education excels on this topic over what's going off in Saudi Arabia. Let me finish. Western education has demonstrated through concise studies of the human brain that the frontal lobes of 6-year-olds, which is the moral aspect where the moral decision making occurs,
Whole personality.
does not occur until much after puberty. A 6-year-old who hasn't entered into puberty, as Aisha had not entered into puberty, would not have the frontal lobes to make a moral decision. That's a fact.
Can I speak now?
That's a fact. Yeah, go on.
Should we just have a back and forth? Should we time it? How are we going to do it?
Would you like to time it?
I don't mind. I'll just have a discussion.
Let's go point
As long as I'm not
Okay.
just speaking for 5 minutes over you, and it's not like
Vice
10
versa.
minutes.
So let's do
amicable conversation.
Agreed. Let's do point by point. 1 point, 1 point, backwards and forwards.
With regards to the, as you said, like the academia basically says that no, it's not correct. There, the prefrontal lobe, it matures at such and such an age.
Post-puberty.
Vice versa. Now, when it comes to, for example, as I said, the advancement of, and I will.
Let me hold it around.
Thank you. I will, and this is something where I'm willing to go away, and I hope that we do this, and I'll come back with the evidence regarding this subject with regards to the advancement as well, regarding the advancement of the young boys and the young girls.
Yeah.
Now, at the time of, just after the time of the Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam, may blessings and peace be upon him, you may have heard of one of the 4 imams from the madahib, Imam al-Shafi'i, from one of the 4 madhabs. Now, when he travelled to Yemen, he said that he noticed that the women, the girls, they became women at the age of 9. And another thing that I would like to say, like with regards to because this is something.
Because we said we were going to do point by point. Can I reply to that point?
Let me finish and then you can go.
We've said we're going to do point by point.
Yeah, sure.
So you've made a point. Can I reply to it?
Let me finish what I'm saying. Okay. So the advancement from childhood from an infant to puberty in those climates, in that locality, was at that age.
Can I reply?
The age of 9.
Can I reply?
You see it?
Can I reply now?
Sure.
So the brother argued that Shafi, which was an early Muslim, said that he noticed that children had become women at 9 years old. I want to point out that Shafi knew absolutely nothing about childhood development. He is not an expert, and his testimony counts for spittle.
Why'd you say that?
Let me finish. No, let me finish. No, but you made no number of points. Let me finish. The reality is, Shafi is not an authority on childhood development, but the authorities on childhood development point out that human beings are the same everywhere and they develop at the same rate. That is a biological fact. It does not change based on climate. That is a lie. Furthermore, the frontal lobes, which are responsible for moral decision making, develop post-puberty. Aisha, at 6 years old, had not entered into puberty, so her frontal lobes, responsible for moral decision making, could not have developed. Which means that she did not have the mental faculties to agree to a marriage. And according to Islam, you can't make someone marry if they're not mentally capable. Is that true?
Is that true?
Is that true?
You cannot be a child cannot be forced into marriage, no.
Agreed.
A woman cannot be forced into marriage.
Great.
Because anybody, when it comes to the marital contract being concluded, there must be approval.
And it's got to be by consent, right?
Of course.
Informed consent.
It's got to be by consent, yes.
By mentally capable people, agreed?
Indeed.
How is a 6-year-old mentally capable to agree to marriage?
So, what you're saying, firstly, I would like you to provide your sources with regards, because you're making claims. You're saying that across the board, like wherever the people are in
Yes.
the world,
Yes.
they develop the same.
Yes.
They develop the same.
Yes.
Right.
Can you maybe pull up a
kindly provide
Yeah.
evidence.
clinical study, see if we can find one?
Regarding Imam al-Shafi'i,
Look at the frontal
Imam
decision-making lobes. That's what we're looking
Imam
for.
al-Shafi'i. Imam al-Shafi'i.
Yeah.
Now tell me why you are making the claim that he has absolutely no authority in that regard.
Right,
Have
great.
Have you studied who he was as a person?
I will answer that question.
Have you studied him?
I will answer that question. The study of childhood development did not exist until the modern period. No one was studying it in any great way. Shafi, when it comes to the question of childhood development, is as ignorant as pretty much everyone else listening to this debate. He knows as little as we do. But what we do know, well, a bit like yours, what we do know, What we do know, and you can check this. Have you found a study yet?
Not a study, but
Keep-
a website.
keep looking.
Links to studies.
What? Right. What?
To make it.
Sorry. Let me finish. 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 You have asked me to provide sources. What are your academic sources that demonstrate that children in hot climates develop their frontal lobes earlier, prepubescently, before anyone else?
What are yours? Have you got them now?
Right, no. You've asked me for evidence. We can do the same.
But you're saying that you have it basically. If you're
Okay.
Summary.
So,
I believe it's a
On-
US government health website.
yes, on an American government health website. So this is a government health website in the USA. It states this: the development and maturation of the prefrontal cortex occurs primarily during adolescence and is fully accomplished at the age of 25 years old.
Right.
The
give an
development
age? Does it give
of
an age?
prefrontal cortex is very important for complex behavioral performance, as this region is the brain that helps to accomplish and execute those brain functions.
does it say-
Let me just
No, but
state what that
now
means.
You're making a bit of a monologue. We're having a dialogue.
Right, go on, ask a question.
Right. So before you were saying that it's basically impossible for somebody at that age, the age of 6, to have prefrontal cortex development, right?
Correct.
Right. That source that you just pulled up did not say that.
It did.
No, it didn't.
What's an adolescent?
No. That's saying it's talking about adolescence.
What is an adolescent?
And that's 11. I don't
What's an adolescent?
an adolescent?
Yeah.
Someone who's gone into puberty.
Someone who's gone into puberty. Had Aisha gone into puberty at 6 years old?
At the age of 6, no.
No. So she wasn't an adolescent then, was she?
Right, but it doesn't mean that she can't make her decision on certain.
No, it really does. That's exactly what that's exactly what that study demonstrates. You're an adolescent when you go into puberty. Aisha, by the fact that Muhammad waited 3 years to have sex with her and had sex with her apparently when she started menstruating, proves that she wasn't an adolescent at the time that she supposedly agreed to marry him. Which means that poor little girl did not have the mental capacity to agree to a marriage. How would you reply to that?
Nobody says that. That she didn't have the capacity.
She couldn't have because she wasn't an adolescent. She
Sorry?
was 6.
Yes.
And
But-
she was prepubescent, wasn't she? Means she didn't have periods. She's 6, she didn't have periods, so that means she is not an adolescent, which means that her frontal lobes had not developed, which means she did not have the mental capacity to agree to a moral choice. No 6-year-old does. They're robots. You tell them to do something and they say yes or no, but they can't explain the moral reasons for it.
Yeah. But when it comes to certain scientific findings,
Like the ones we've just quoted.
right? So, say for example now, it says that somebody, when it comes to maturity, someone
Yes.
becoming mature,
Yes.
somebody being able to make decisions for themselves.
Yes.
And if it says this is around the age of 12, for example, right?
Go on.
Or adolescence, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? Does that mean that every single person at that age has become mature?
Right.
Like
Great question.
Maturity can come to someone at the age of 25.
May I answer that question?
You have people, for example, now 30, 40, 50. They're mature individuals and they can't make their mind up.
May I answer that question?
You understand? So it's not something that across the board, like for example, that person's hit adolescence, so because of that, they have become mature enough, they have become able to make decisions for themselves.
May I answer that
You
question?
understand? So it's not something that across the board.
May I answer that question?
Go for it.
So yes, of course, there are people with mental illnesses who do not mature. They do not mature. Now, the thing is, his argument is that there are immature adults with no mental illness. And he's completely right. But that doesn't mean that a prepubescent, non-adolescent child has the capacity to make a mental choice. That is a non sequitur argument. The premise does not lead to the conclusion. The fact of the matter, and it is a fact, it is a biological fact, 6-year-olds cannot make complex moral choices And choosing to be in a family with another adult is a complex moral choice.
A 50-something-year-old.
A 50-something-year-old. I would ask you, point to me another 6-year-old that can make a complex moral choice. Would you, let me ask you this question. Have you got children? No. Do a thought experiment with me. Would you marry your 6-year-old daughter?
Sorry? Oh, my daughter?
Yes, would you marry
No, my daughter, no, of course not.
No. Why not?
My own daughter. It's incest.
Yes, why not?
It's incest.
What?
It's incest.
No, I didn't ask that question.
Would you marry your daughter? I said,
You're just playing semantic, silly games.
no, I'm asking you a question.
Would you allow your daughter, who is 6-year-old, to marry?
Do not patronize. Please do not patronize me.
What he meant was, would you marry?
It was obvious what I meant.
No, you said, would you marry your 6-year-old daughter? And then you became patronizing. I answered your question.
You did silly semantics. You know that's not what was being asked. All right, so let me rephrase the question.
So what, am I supposed to read your mind and your heart?
I think everyone else recognised what question was being asked.
Yep.
Did you understand it?
Yes.
Did you understand it?
Ask the question.
Did you understand
Ask
it? What amazing! Only the Muslims didn't understand it.
Excuse me.
So,
He said, would you marry your own daughter? How stupid are you?
which is obviously the question of consent. Anyone with a brain
You asked me if
recognises
I marry
that.
my daughter. I said no. It's incest.
Look, I'm not even going to have this argument with you. Let anyone who's watching on camera
so-
and now make their own
why are you
judgment
making an
about whether
argument
I was being
semantic?
patronising or whether you was being facetious. So let them make the judgment. Let's not argue about whether you were being facetious or I was being patronising. Let's get back to the argument. Would you consent to your 6-year-old daughter marrying a 54-year-old man?
My 6-year-old daughter.
Your 6-year-old daughter.
The fact that you haven't instantly
would
said
you
no is really
consent?
concerning.
It is really concerning.
The fact that you have to think this over is terrifying.
It is terrifying.
It is terrifying that you might
Yeah.
even...
Okay. Would you allow your 6-year-old daughter to marry a 54-year-old man?
No.
Would you?
Hell no.
Would
I
you?
would slay any man
All
who
right, thank you.
suggested that.
Now, would you allow your 6-year-old daughter? See how quick that was. Would you allow your 6-year-old daughter to marry a 54-year-old man?
Now, if it was the Prophet Muhammad,
Yeah.
alayhi salatu wasalam,
Yeah.
and my daughter is as advanced as Aisha was, because
Yeah.
as we know from the history, from who she was,
Yeah.
with regards to how she was far ahead of other women of her time.
This is a
how
long way
Yeah,
of
yeah.
saying yes or no.
Yeah, because it's
It's
her.
not yes,
Listen,
no answer.
because my daughter is not
It has to be
Aisha,
explained.
and the man is not the Prophet Muhammad. alayhi
So
salatu
let me
wasalam.
ask you this
Do
question.
you want to keep speaking over me, or can I respond to you?
No, go on. Answer my question.
Right. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
You keep trying to speak over me. So, if my daughter was Aisha, if I was Abu Bakr,
Which
if
you're
I was in
not.
that
I
position.
didn't ask you that question.
Well,
No, my question-
in this day and age, see, you're giving me a hypothetical man, a hypothetical daughter. I don't know what my daughter would be like. I
Okay.
don't know who the man would be.
Let me rephrase the question in a very concrete way. Do you advocate for changing the law that would allow 6-year-olds to consent to marriage?
In this country,
Yes.
do I advocate for it?
Okay,
Yes.
don't answer it, don't answer it. He's just fooling you. Wallah, he's just fooling you.
Simple question.
Why is he embarrassed to answer that question?
21st century, everyone's mind is
Why
set.
is this
All right.
religionist
One second,
embarrassed
I'm
of him
speaking to
answering?
him.
Let me ask you this question.
21st century.
Do you think Saudi
everyone's
Arabia
mind is
should allow 6-year-olds to get married?
Okay, do you want to?
Wallah,
let us
okay, he
converse?
just goes on about it.
Okay, is this between me and? Jazakallah khairan.
No. Some point we'll come across.
Guys, this is not a hard question. It's a simple yes or no. And my problem is that he's hesitant to answer the question. I'll ask you the question. I'll ask the question again. Do you think that Saudi Arabia should allow 6-year-old children to marry?
Again, like I said, with regards to people, they vary. Like, I've already explained that, as he said. I've explained to you the situation. I said if I was in the position of Abu Bakr,
Which wasn't my question. That's not my question. I'll state my question
already
again.
answered you twice.
Do you think that Saudi Arabia should allow 6-year-olds to marry?
Do you believe that women should be not allowed to teach?
Don't answer a question with a question. The question was, do you think? Do you think?
Stand by his side. 2 against 1. Come and stand in as well.
It's all right, guys. Look, there's no need. There's no need. Look, like, let's be fair to this brother. He did ask him to stop.
Okay,
So I'm going to do the same.
You said you were leaving. I came to
Right?
you initially.
Bro, one second. Bro, 1 second. So the reality is, guys, this is why it matters what Muhammad did. Because if Muhammad is meant to be the best example, and he married a 6-year-old child, which he did, then that means that that is the best example that we should all be following. Now, it doesn't mean, it doesn't follow that every Muslim has to marry a 6-year-old child, but it does follow that it should be possible that some Muslims should be able to marry a 6-year-old child. So how would you reply to that?
No, you're trying to hijack the thing and make it go as you want it to
Look,
go.
bro, you had the
Let's
chance to
be
answer the
fair.
question, and you dodged it.
Dodged what question?
The question that and neither was to the question I asked. Neither was to the question that I asked.
You in two ways.
No, you didn't answer my question at all.
I answered you in two ways. But anyway, with regards to
Marrying children.
marrying children,
Yeah.
with regards to the question I asked you,
Go on.
do you believe that women should not be allowed to teach?
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show to you what answering the question looks like.
Okay.
The question was, do I as a Christian believe that women should be allowed to teach? My answer, yes, they should.
Okay, why do you believe that?
Why do I believe that? Because women have dignity and capacity as teachers. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that's what it looks like to answer a question. Now let me ask him a question.
The original question.
Do you believe that Saudi Arabia should allow 6-year-old children to marry?
6-year-old children. Again, like I've
Can I try
said
answer?
previously,
Yeah,
with regards to marriage,
That's how it works.
with regards to, brothers, please, with regards to marriage, if there is, for example, a 25-year-old woman, and she is not deemed to be someone who can form decisions for herself, she's not deemed to be someone who is in a position where she should be getting married,
Yeah.
she's immature,
Yeah.
then she shouldn't be marrying someone even if it's the same age of her.
But that wasn't my question. My question was,
But
do you think that Saudi Arabia should allow 6-year-old children to marry?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Ladies and gentlemen, that should shock you. He has stood here and said that 6-year-old children should be allowed to marry. That is a problem. And it is a problem that emerges out of the example of Muhammad. And that is exactly why, as a Christian, I reject the example of Muhammad and am a follower of Jesus Christ.
Anyway, so you're a follower of Jesus.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
After, brother. Question
Let
answer
him
after.
Okay,
talk.
go on.
Let him talk.
Okay, so anyhow, as I was saying, with regards to, because you asked me the question regarding Aisha, and I gave you an answer. I gave you two answers. I said regarding my daughter, hypothetical daughter,
Yeah.
I don't know what her mental capacity would be, and the guy, I don't know what he's going to be like. Do you understand? And I said, if I was Abu Bakr at the time of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, I would, if I was in his position, I would permit what he permitted. Do you understand?
So marrying
This man-
6-year-olds.
Exactly what he did.
Exactly what he did.
What he gave his daughter away. He was of the closest to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. He was, the revelation was given whilst he was still alive, whilst he was present. Do you understand? He knew the man, the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, prior to his revelation, the revelation coming
All of
to
that's
him.
all right.
No. Come on, you've been speaking for like 5 minutes
Not
straight.
really.
Yes, you have. So you're saying, should Saudi Arabia, your question is, should they permit 6-year-olds
You've
to
already
marry?
answered that question. You said yes.
Yes, right.
said
I
yes.
didn't just say
A
straight
yes is a yes.
No, I didn't
There
just
is
say
no
yes.
no if you say
no,
yes.
No, you're twisting. I said yes and
You
no.
can't say yes and no. That's
Yes
the,
or no?
that's the
I'll
law
tell you
of
what.
mutual
Kind of
contradiction.
because it
Shall I tell you
depends
what?
on
There you go.
So that's a yes. So that's a yes.
It can also be a
There's
no as
no
well.
no. That's a yes.
It can also be a no as well.
It's called-
for example,
that's non sequitur
I
logic.
can say yes.
That's
this
non
person
sequitur
can marry
logic.
This person because this person is
That
good.
breaks the
At
law of
same
contradiction.
Time, I can say no because this person
That
is
breaks
not
the law of contradiction.
So why do you choose yes?
That's the break.
So why do you choose yes?
Because if you're saying
yes
yes,
and no, no?
I
if
said
you're
it's
saying yes
dependent.
under any circumstances, you've said yes.
No, we never said
To the
yes
question.
under any circumstances.
No.
Bob, we never made that.
I never
claim.
claimed that you did.
Oh, okay. I thought you just did.
Yeah, you weren't listening.
Okay, repeat yourself.
So what I said was that if you permit the marriage of children in any circumstances, you've agreed to the marrying of children. And we've already established that 6-year-old children 6-year-old children do not have the frontal lobe development ready to make moral choices. Islam is bad guidance because it's based on the ignorance of childhood development. Ignorance that we in the West do not share. And that is why, the entire world is raising the age of consent. There is no country anywhere in the world that is arguing to lower the age of consent. And the reason why is because the evidence is clear. Children cannot consent.
Mate, you're spitting. Calm down.
You're preaching now. Guys, please. Look.
Sorry, I was raising my voice because they were interrupting.
My friend, you can't respond. If you know, say yes or no. Say
Anyway,
yes or no.
guys, brothers, please. I've got it, inshallah.
Just wait. Okay.
I just want to ask a question for myself.
Ikhwan, afterwards, please. Please, now, brother.
Afterwards, I'll let you
Brother,
ask.
please. Okay.
that's fine.
Okay.
Wallah, I've got one ask something.
No, let him talk. We're meant to be having a dialogue.
If he accepts the question, or do you want to do it afterwards? Afterwards. He wants to ask your question. Fine. With regards to age of consent, with regards to marriage,
Yeah.
what does Christianity teach regarding that?
Sorry?
Christianity, you're Christian, right?
Okay, yes.
Right. What does your religion teach regarding that?
That is a great question. And I will be as brief as I possibly
What's the minimum age?
I will be as brief as I possibly can. Within the Christian faith,
The Bible.
you've asked me a question, now let me answer.
I'm
Let me answer. Let me answer.
I'm
You've
saying
asked a
within the
question.
Bible, you said the faith
No,
within
let
the
me
Bible.
answer.
Just to be-
So
clarify,
the
the
Christian
Bible.
faith teaches this.
The Bible.
Where the Christian faith teaches this, that where the apostles or prophets are silent, you act according to the best knowledge available. And we know this because the scriptures command us, they command us to reason, and they command us to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Which means that as Christians learn about the environment or they learn about childhood development, we are free to pass laws according to the best knowledge. And that means that the Christian world over history has consistently raised the age of consent higher and higher. Now, ladies and gentlemen, notice the interruption. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's a real difference to Islam. Because Islam teaches that Muhammad is the best example, that he can't be beaten, that therefore if Muhammad does something, it should be permissible to you unless there's a clear injunction against it. Example, Muhammad had more than 4 wives, but there is a clear injunction in the Quran that you as Muslims can only have 4 wives. But Muhammad married a 6-year-old child, and there is no injunction in any Islamic literature forbidding any Muslim man from marrying a 6-year-old child. Which means that whilst Muslims are not obliged to marry 6-year-old children, they can marry 6-year-old children, and there's no basis to object. But in Christianity we can object, because in Christianity we have space for other kinds of learning. It's why science was born in the Western Christian world rather than the Islamic world.
That is.
We don't believe you're being honest.
Science was born in the Christian world, did you say?
Modern science was born
Modern
in the Christian
science.
world. Yeah.
That's another discussion with regards to science. Anyway, so Bob has responded saying that in Christian faith, so you're saying like with the advancement of time, you can basically tweak rulings, right? So if it's like 9 years old, then as time goes by, you can put it up to 13, you can put it up to 15.
Yes. So as we learn about things, we can change.
Who puts the
Yeah.
who puts the new injunctions in place? Like
We do.
15 now?
We do. Based on
Without permission of God.
sufficient learning.
So without divine revelation, you tweak it.
Right, so let me explain that point, because
it's a
it's a very
cultural
good point.
thing. It's a cultural thing.
It's a very good point. Let me explain it.
No. I wanna
No.
speak-
I'm going to
you spoke
explain
for a while.
it.
You spoke for a while.
Right, so
Take
go
my
on then.
points on board
Go
and
on. Yeah, I'll
respond.
take your points on board and I'll respond.
Right. So the Bible itself does not categorically say that there is a minimum age with regards to marriage and,
No.
and consummation, right?
About divine
Right.
revelation.
But does it say
Yeah.
that? Does the Bible say
So
that?
it's all right. I've got him.
Does the Bible? You haven't got nothing.
Yeah.
Does the Bible give a minimum age with regards to marriage?
Doesn't need
That's my
to.
question.
Doesn't need to.
Doesn't need to what?
Doesn't need to. Right, great question. The reason why the Bible doesn't need.
You said it goes to the best of knowledge.
Allow me to. Hello. Right.
I don't think he likes your argument.
So let me address this question. There's teleological ethics and there's deontic ethics. Islam follows the principle of deontic ethics, i.e., ethics derived from rules. Christianity follows teleological ethics, which means ethics aimed towards an end. Teleological ethics about the question of sexual maturity is based upon the end of what is good for the parties involved, which means that within teleological ethics there is space and room to change the age in which it becomes acceptable to have sex. In Islam, they follow deontic ethics, i.e. ethics based on rules. And in Islam, it is permissible to have sex with a 9-year-old child because Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old child. So that answers your question.
Christianity.
Do you even know what teleological and deontic mean?
You just explained it.
What does teleological mean?
You just explained it. Are you questioning? Are you questioning?
Yes, I don't
definition
think.
now?
Yes, I
Definition
question that
we're
you
not?
do not understand teleological.
Anyway.
I don't believe you understand the word.
This is not what we're discussing. Do you know what hypnopompic means?
No.
No. Fine. There you go.
Do you know what teleological
Do you know
means?
what hypnopompic means?
No, I don't.
Right.
But teleological is
Do you
related
not
to
know
the
a
question.
definition? Perhaps we don't know a difference.
No, teleological is related to the
Do you
question.
know what crepuscular means?
Teleological.
Crepuscular. Do you know what it is?
Again. No, I don't.
We're
I'm
not
happy
here
to
debate
learn.
definitions. We're not here to debate definitions.
Oh no,
Anyway.
but those are crucial to the debate.
So, you believe the Bible is divine? From
Yes,
divine
of course,
origin,
yes.
right. And the best of guidance is within the Bible.
Yes.
So why did God not say from the beginning you cannot marry a 1-year-old in the Bible?
Right.
Or you cannot marry a baby?
Right. That's a great question, and I'm happy to answer it. Because even this answer is better than the answer that Islam gives. Why didn't God say clearly,
it's 1 and it's
don't
5
marry
and it's 9
these
and
children?
it's
Yeah,
14
exactly. I'm
and
going to
18.
answer that very question. It's simple. Because people were stubborn and ignorant and they wouldn't have been able to hear it. It's the same reason why God to the people of Israel,
Jesus' generation, they were stubborn and ignorant.
allowed them to divorce. Why? Because they were too stubborn and ignorant to hear if God they were hard-hearted people. Now, how is that better than Muhammad? I'll tell you how that's better than Muhammad. Muhammad is supposedly the best example that had sex with a 9-year-old child.
The Bible permits sex with babies. What are you talking about?
Now, the reality is that means he is an example to all of these Muslims, which means that it is permissible in Islam to have sex with 9-year-old children.
According to the Bible to have sex with babies.
If you don't mind, just one last point. Just to let you know.
I will respond to his point, by the
That's
way.
fine. Just to let you know, everyone, Aisha was already engaged to someone else before Muhammad married her.
Yes.
What does that tell?
It tells us
Sexual maturity at that time for that girl was in place.
Let me reply to
So
that.
this means it was normal for that age and time. This is the thing that you guys can't
You're
understand.
mistaken. 24th century. You're mistaken.
15 years ago.
Let me reply to that. So let me reply to that. Let me reply to that. No, I'm going to reply. I'll let you come back. No, I will let you come back. The reason why this argument is fallacious is just because a culture was in the habit of marrying children does not mean that they were not children. It just...
Sexual maturity was attained at that age because even nowadays, if you look,
Was she prepubescent?
now let me tell you.
Was
this.
she prepubescent? Was she prepubescent? Look, we're having a discussion and you're kidnapping her.
Even nowadays,
Brother, do you want to come back to this conversation?
Can I ask my one question?
Yeah, go on, bro.
So it's just a simple question. Do you think 9-year-olds today are exactly the same as 9-year-olds back then? Or is there a clear difference? Do you at least admit that?
Biologically, they're the same.
And in other ways, how are they different?
They're socially and culturally different, but biologically, they're the same.
Biologically. Okay, you answered it. That was my question.
That's what answering the question looks like.
So
Same topic.
I'll ignore that again.
Educated.
I still have my question.
When it
By
comes,
the way, any Muslim who's saying that Rebecca was 3 years old in the Bible, I challenge you to find me the passage that says that. Guys, use Google and show me where in the Bible it says Rebecca was 3. You're lying. You're lying.
Will you show me where it says in the Quran to marry at 9 years old?
Sorry, I got carried away. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I got carried away. Okay, let's bring it down a tone. Carry on. I apologize. Let's everybody. Carry on. Go on.
Make you forget.
In the book of Joshua 3 verse 40. Oh, here we go. And Rebecca was 10 years old. when she took
His heart is sealed.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Joshua, the book of Joshua.
Allah has sealed his heart. Yeah? No matter what
Go
you
on.
say.
He's not Muslim, by the way.
Go on. Bro,
anyway,
focus.
so where were we? Where were we? It's just gone off on.
So we were talking about so my
Yeah, so I asked
so
you a
the
question. I
key
said with
point
regards- oh yeah, sorry.
that we were talking about the fact that the Bible does allows us to make our own judgments about
But
what.
now let me ask
Yeah.
you this question. Now in Britain,
Yes.
it has a different law with regards to the age of consent
Yes.
in comparison to Spain.
Yes.
Italy, Spain, America,
Yep,
Britain,
yep.
they all vary.
Yes.
With regards to the age
Yes.
of consent.
That's right.
Right. So, are you telling me that Britain is more closer to the Bible and Christianity than Spain is? How do you decide which of those who are legislating? This should be the minimum age. This should be the minimum age. This should be which of them are correct?
So allow me.
because you're saying. Yeah, go on.
Allow me to respond. The key thing that you've got to grasp is that the Christian ethical system is teleological in principle. And teleological is about looking at what virtues create what best characters, as opposed to a deontic ethical system, which is what Islam is, which is about which rules are the best. And that's a fundamental difference between our two religions. So let me answer the question. To the question of sexual ethics, the end goal that we should be concerned with is what is in the best interest of the parties that are involved. And that obviously involves their mental, emotional and physical health. And it does not take anyone of any great genius to recognize that children are not helped in terms of their mental, physical health by marrying prepubescently, by marrying too early, or by having sex too early. Which means that, to answer your question directly, when we study the development of childhood development, we must change our laws according to the best information. And the best information is what we have, and we make our decisions on that, not based like sheep just following the example of a Bedouin who didn't understand that a 6-year-old could not marry and that a 9-year-old was too young for sex.
Anyway.
I think we as
Brothers,
Muslims nowadays
Ikhwan, please let me have a dialogue with him, please.
Some Muslims
Is that
do.
what you're saying? I am married.
Some Muslims do.
Engage me, please, because
Sorry,
if we
yeah,
engage
you're
in
right.
it's just going to take
You're
it.
absolutely right. Sorry.
Brother, ask him a simple question.
brother.
The age of
Let him-
Aisha,
let him do
is this
it.
the first time he's had
Let
a
him do it.
conversation with age of Aisha? Every week he comes, he gets educated, and what? He comes back again next week.
Oh, sorry, are we letting them diving in now?
Please let him talk. Yeah.
To be honest, I think he needs Hashim or Shamsi, some sort.
Let the guy speak.
He doesn't say it. You're just quiet.
He comes to the corner and says,
The Muslims are basically upset that the guy isn't representing Islam strong enough. In other words, he's losing the argument, and the Muslims are heckling him because he's losing the argument.
Be honest. But wait, hold on. No, one thing about Christians, you have to
Let
be
him
honest.
talk. Let him talk.
You can't misrepresent Muslims like that. That's
Okay,
so wrong.
okay, step back.
That's
It's okay,
disingenuous.
it's okay.
I know you don't care about
for one,
what
Bob,
I'm
that's what nobody talks to him.
As I said earlier, please don't patronize me, because I'm not. For example, now I could stand here, I could throw out loads of points towards you. I could feel that I made my point.
Yep.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
That you can respond well, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to say that you're losing the argument, for example, in front of just to rile up the crowd. You see it?
It's just part of the game of Speaker's Corner, bro. Enjoy it.
I don't see it as a game.
That's
It's
fair.
just- it's
Go
just
on.
We don't see it as a game. We see it as a genuine dialogue.
discussion, a
We want to
dialogue.
learn from one
You
another.
understand?
This is
I'm
we're
not
not
trying to
battling.
score.
I'm
I'm
learning.
It's
I'm
not
learning.
battling.
I'm not trying to
But
battle
we're
you.
not trying to battle
learning.
you.
Hold on, please.
Listen,
I'm not
and
trying to
we
humiliate
can't
you.
win or
Bro,
lose. We can't
bro,
win or lose.
let him talk.
Please.
I'm the one
I just-
advocating that
I
you
just-
should get to speak right
Listen,
now.
I'm not here. I just want to make it clear. I'm not here. I know this is something when it comes to Speaker's Corner. This is perhaps a mentality a lot of people come with. They come here, they want to overpower the next person in speech.
Let's come to the topic, bro.
Yeah? So please, I ask you respectfully, let's not try and belittle one another. I've not done that at all in this discussion with you.
That's true. That's very true.
I'm just
Yes, that's
discussing
true.
with you.
That's true, you
So I
haven't.
ask you kindly, please do not do that to me.
If
as
you
well.
felt that I was belittling you, I apologise sincerely. That certainly wasn't my intention.
Right. Thank you. So, when it comes to, like, we're still on the topic of age of consent.
Yes.
Now, for example, now you've got in wherever it's Portugal or Spain, where it
Yeah.
says minimum age 14.
Yes.
Right. Now, let's say a girl does not develop at the age of 14.
Yeah.
She becomes pubescent at the age of 15.
Yeah.
So that law is therefore permitting sex with somebody who's not sexually mature.
I agree.
Right.
And that would be an argument to raise the age of consent.
Right. Now, Islamically, when it comes to sexual maturity, when it comes to sexual intercourse
Yes.
within marriage,
Yes.
within the realms of marriage,
Yes.
it can only be done when the person is pubescent. That's one of the conditions of it.
Yes.
You understand? It's not like if we said, for example, in Islam it says the minimum age is 14, the minimum age is 15. You could get a boy who becomes pubescent at the age of 16.
Yeah.
So therefore, you're permitting a person, a young boy, to have sex at the age of 15 when he's still a minor.
Do you
understand?
think, let me come back to you. Do you think that just because someone starts puberty, that suddenly means that they are ready to have sexual relations? Just because they bleed, they're ready to breed?
No, when it comes, because as you know, when it comes to sexual intercourse in Islam, the person has to be within a marital contract. Prior to that, right? No.
We're talking about capacity.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Talking about mental capacity.
They need to be within married. They need to be married, and also with regards to mental capacity, there's different conditions. As the brother said,
Yep.
when it comes to marriage,
Yep.
there's conditions that must be in place. One of them being sexual maturity.
Right, and Aisha was incapable of having any of those things.
It's still going back to the
Because she's the example you're following.
Please,
How was that the case, bro?
Ikhwan,
Because Muhammad had sex with Aisha.
I'll let you guys take over.
No.
I'm trying to
speak,
engage
speak.
one-on-one,
Okay,
and then
go
it's just
speak.
the whole.
Sorry, it's my fault. I responded to both of them. I should have ignored them.
Don't bite, bro.
So sorry, continue.
So my point is, the reason why this... What's your name, by the way?
Kyron.
Sorry?
Kyron.
Kyron. That's a really nice name.
Thank you.
Nice. Bob. Yeah. So Kyron, the reason why this is important. The reason why this is important is because if you're saying that Muhammad is the best example, it naturally follows that what Muhammad did, at least unless there's a contrary injunction, must be at the very least permissible. That's logical. It seems to follow. So if Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old child and married a prepubescent girl at 6, then at the very least it has to be permissible for you to marry a prepubescent girl at 6 and a 9-year-old who, let's just for the sake of charity and just because I don't want to get caught up on it, enters puberty at 9. But just because someone enters puberty at 9, let's say they do, it does not mean that they are physically or mentally able to bear children or to take on the responsibilities of marriage.
Did you hear the point I made before
And there is no evidence that Aisha had that mental capacity. Aisha is described as playing with dolls. Is someone who plays with dolls considered mature or immature?
That's not a solid argument, but I don't want to interrupt you, so go ahead.
You did interrupt.
Sorry, I apologize.
Would you normatively describe someone playing with dolls as adolescent or childish?
So, as I was saying before, regarding the age of sexual maturity,
Yeah.
that is one of the conditions when it comes to
Yeah, we got that.
someone consummating a marriage.
Yeah, we got that.
Right, and the other conditions as well, with regards to a consummation of the marriage.
Yeah.
Regarding the 6 years old, remember at the beginning of the discussion I said, with regards to the conclusion of the contract, however I worded it,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I'd have to check.
I'm sure.
And I.
I'm 100% sure.
Fine. I'll go away and check it.
Is it
With
the
regards,
two of
with
you
regards
that-
to the with regards
in
to
the
the,
conversation,
with regards to the
nobody has to come in?
consummation, I'm not taking that away. 9 years old. If it was 9, okay. I'm not denying that. I'm not going to say no.
Fair
It's
enough.
18.
Okay.
Yes,
Yep.
it's an
Yep.
right. But as I've said,
gonna
with
take
regards to
questions, like, after
these things Islamically,
I want to ask him a question.
if the person is 16, if, for example, a girl is 17 years old
Yeah.
and she's not sexually mature, brother, please. If she's 17 years old and she's not sexually mature,
Yep.
she cannot.
Right. Let me address. Can I address that point? Because it's a fair counterpoint. What do we do about when we've got a law in place where there are examples of people not entering into puberty?
I missed
So-
your, please go back a few.
Right. So I want to address your argument directly. Because your argument is that in the West we have examples where the age of consent has incidences of children entering puberty above that age, which means obviously they could legally have sex before they've entered into puberty. Now, I agree with you that logically, from my position, that is an argument to raise the age of consent. And you're talking to someone who believes that we should raise the age of consent even above 16. I think that the age of consent should be more closer to 18, maybe 17, certainly 18. Right, of course, but it's based upon the study of human biology. And the reason, yes, exactly. The reason why that is consistent with my faith is because my ethical system as a Christian is teleological in nature, which means that it's not rule-based. I am being 100% consistent with being a Christian. We believe that what we're searching for is the good of the sexual parties. And the good of the sexual parties is to ensure that in as many cases, with the exception of some extreme medical condition, that they are in a position mentally and physically to have sex, whereas what you're arguing for is the other way around. You're arguing that because, and I'm being charitable here, I'm being really charitable, that because a unique exception of a 9-year-old entered into puberty, that means we should lower the age of consent to at least 9, meaning that there's lots of 9-year-olds.
Bob, let's be fair.
Yeah, you said
Let's
puberty.
represent me. Let's
My apologies. No, let me correct myself. You're quite right.
we never said
You're
at
right.
least
You're right. You're right.
9.
I'm going to correct myself. You said that they had to have puberty, but the problem with that is that people enter physical puberty
Not just puberty,
before they have mental capacity.
But as I said, when it comes to marriage, Islamic, it's not just the condition of pubescence.
Yes.
There's more conditions than that.
And I'm saying Muhammad
like-
did not meet those conditions when he married Aisha.
And he's saying because Aisha played with the doll. That's
I'm saying, do you understand my criticism? I'm saying that what you're saying is great. What Muhammad did is bad. Muhammad didn't even do what you're saying.
But with regards to Aisha, sorry, I'm being distracted by your guy.
I can't stop him, bro.
I need to ask you a couple of questions, my brother.
Afterwards, yeah.
So,
Because I'm Muslim.
anyway,
No, we're gonna.
do you
Are you
want to ask him
practicing
now?
this time?
No, go ahead. I'm not practicing.
finish what he was gonna say.
Finish what I was going to say.
You used to be Christian, right? Sorry.
My trail of
I
thought
was
now.
born in a Christian family, but the most places
I'll remind you what
Oh,
he
go
said.
ahead. Sorry,
No, to remind you what he said. What he's saying is, look, so he knows that what our argument, he agrees with us. What we're saying is good in that it's not just.
I agree that
You're
children.
saying Muhammad sallallahu didn't follow what we're saying,
I'm saying, yeah, then that's evident.
and that what we're saying is good, and that what he done is bad. That's basically. What
I
we're
am saying that if you're consistent to what you're saying, you have to say Muhammad was a bad man.
Or at least wrong.
Did you get your train of thought back?
Anyway, so regarding Aisha, radiallahu anha, as I mentioned far back in our discussion, she, and you may know this yourself, because you're somebody who obviously looks into the Islamic sources before you come here and you have discussions with Muslims.
Yeah.
That Aisha radiallahu anha, she was of the most, when it comes to the narrations of the hadith, she narrated them, not the most, but perhaps the second or third after Abu Hurairah.
At what age?
Higher narrators.
At what age?
At what age what? At what age did she narrate hadith?
At what age did she narrate all these hadiths?
At what age? Various ages.
No.
She's not standing, for example, she could be standing
Are you saying
at
she
age-
did all the hadiths all at one specific age?
I'm not
No.
saying she narrated them
I'm
all.
saying she did the hadith narrations mainly after Muhammad died. How old was Aisha when Muhammad died?
Right, but the thing is,
Well, what's wrong with that? I don't understand.
excuse me,
Because
I'll let you take over. No, bro, say the mic. I keep repeatedly.
Okay, go on. Okay, you
No, take it. Please, continue.
Bro, shall we stop? Kieran. That's such a great name. Kieran, I'm sorry our conversation broke down a bit. I really appreciate talking to you. I'm going to give one final point, and then you can give a final point, and then let's stop. So my point is...
Well, no, hold on one second. Let me take an oath. Wallahi, I'm going to stay quiet for the next 10 minutes, I promise.
Okay.
Are you hearing this? Wallahi, I take an oath. Next 10 minutes is... What's the
Taking
time?
an oath.
I can't even read that.
I trust you. I trust you.
5... What?
Right. So
Okay,
my point...
5:55, yeah?
My point is, the argument that Aisha, look at her, she was so great, she regave all these hadiths, and that proves her mental capacity. But the point is, most of those hadiths were given when she was an adult, not when she was a child. So the fact that she gave hadiths when she was an adult doesn't prove that she had mental capacity when she was a child. The fact that she gave lots of hadiths after Muhammad died does not mean that she was an adult when she was 6. And that's the fallacy of the Islamic counter-argument.
I apologize to interrupt, but the one thing that I've heard in Muslim scholarship is that if a young person simply gives silence, that is counted as consent. Does that actually equate to any kind of indicator of mental capacity?
Am I doing a closing statement or not?
Yeah, you do your closing statement.
So sorry.
You do your closing statement.
That's what I've heard.
Do your closing statement.
Anyway, so Bob, firstly, thank you for your time. Hopefully, in future we can have respectful. I'm not saying it wasn't respectful, and I hope that this is something that can happen in Speaker's Corner more often, where people can have discussions wherein they're not trying to overpower the next person in speech or trying to humiliate the person. Rather, come in here to learn and benefit. Perhaps I may be able to benefit from Bob something, and
vice versa.
from me, vice versa.
Vice versa.
So the topic was regarding the marriage of Aisha radiallahu anha, may Allah be pleased with her, to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, at the age of 9. And I'm not denying that occurred. What I'm saying, my closing statement is that Islam, when it comes to the marriage of anyone, there's no minimum age given. That can bring about all sorts of problems. As I mentioned earlier in the discussion with Bob, someone could be at the age of 14 and still be a child, prepubescent. They can still be a child, and the law of the land could permit them to have sexual intercourse. Islam,
I agree, that's a problem.
Permits marriage, consummation of marriage, when the person is sexually mature and other conditions,
mental capacity,
other things that come with it. So it's, I guess that's pretty much what I've got to say.
Okay, your name is lovely, but Kyron. It's really lovely speaking to you. Everyone that I have a nice conversation with, I always like to give them a gift, and I'd like to give you a gift. Do you have a Bible?
Do I have a Bible? I have.
You do? Brilliant. Do you read it?
I do.
Great stuff. What I'd like to give you then is yeah, of course.
Do you have Quran?
Yes, I do, but I'm happy to accept another one. What translation do you have? Sahih International. Does it have lots of commentary notes?
It may have footnotes in it, yeah. I just picked it up today, to be honest.
Right. Can I give you this just as a little gift to you? You can read it in all the 10 minutes while having a coffee. It's really nice to meet you.
Likewise.
And I hope we'll talk again. Are you going to come to the corner often?
I am here weekly.
Weekly, then brilliant. Let's have another dialogue. Let's have another conversation. This time, the topic kind of was sort of decided by the other guy that was talking. So maybe we can. Thank you very much.
You've got a rubber band. You can do something with that as well.
Thank you very much. I can flick it at people.
Find lots more of Islamic literature to it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Have a lovely day, and it was really lovely to speak to you. God bless.
Are you? Have you had lunch?
I haven't. No. I'm going to go out with these guys, and he's going to buy me lunch.
I was going to offer you a tea or something like that.
That is so kind. I on this occasion, and I'm going to say no. But next time, maybe another time. Occasionally I treat people to drinks at the Marriott Hotel. So one day I'll take you if you like.
What, you working there?
No. I just take people to the Marriott Hotel and buy them really expensive drinks. So
I'd appreciate that.
yeah, you will, because it's great. Anyway, you look after yourself.
As long as it's non-alcoholic.
Yeah. Tea, mate. Tea. British English breakfast tea. All right. God bless you. Right. I'm going to do a wrap up. To our camera now. Of the whole conversation.
Can I wrap up as well?
What you just did?
Can we make it? I thought you did your wrap up already.
I did a final statement.
You wanna wrap Kyron up in your last?
Yeah, that's it. You do your wrap up. Okay. So it was a really lovely debate with Kyron. The kind of debate that I hope becomes normal in Speaker's Corner, as opposed to the thuggish behaviour that certain groups bring to the corner and that we've seen all too much of late. However, Kyron fundamentally was unable to justify the marriage of Muhammad to Aisha because, as we demonstrated, the frontal precortex, which allows people to make moral decisions, is something that occurs after puberty. Aisha was not in puberty when she agreed to marry Muhammad, which means that she did not have mental capacity to agree to the marriage. Furthermore, just because someone bleeds does not mean they're ready to breathe. And unfortunately, that is the logic that Muslims are committed to. Aisha is argued that because she entered puberty, she was ready for sex. That's not true. The reality is that when you begin puberty, it's the beginning of development into adolescence and adulthood. It isn't the end of a process, it's the beginning. And Muslims basically have come to conclusions that are in contradiction to Muhammad's own behavior. Muslims say that you have to have entered into puberty and you have had to have mental capacity. Aisha, it was impossible for her to have these things. She was still playing with dolls. And that means, ladies and gentlemen, that Muslims don't want to follow the example of Muhammad, which is great news. Because I have a better example, and his name is Jesus Christ. The faith founded by Jesus Christ and the apostles teaches a teleological ethic. Teleological ethics don't live by rules. Teleological ethics live by virtues. And the virtue, in terms of sexual behavior, has to be directed to the holistic health of the participants. And that means that as we learn what it means to be a healthy child, to be a healthy adolescent, every society in the world has raised the age of consent upwards above 6 and above 9. Muslims, by contrast, are arguing from the exception to the rule, rather than allowing the general consensus of when women are ready for sex to govern their ideas about consent to marriage and consent to sex. In other words, The religion of the apostles and prophets is a better guidance than the religion of the desert Bedouin.
Next time, if you're willing to be respectful, you can do it next time.
You have zero respect for Nettie. You obviously.
What, by telling the truth about Muhammad?
Wait, next week. Next week. I agree to debate maybe next time.
Sure, next time.
He knows me. I've had respectful discussions.
I trust you.
Go home. It's a good time.
No. Hold on.
Next time, sure.
When's next time?
Because we're not finishing.
All right, come. Let's have a combo. Let's have a combo. You want to stay and have a combo with him?
Yeah, I'll have it.
You want to have a chat?
I
I mean, he's shouting out things
about
against the Prophet.
pedophilia, child marriages.
So
Do you
we
agree with
discuss
that?
that. Do you want to discuss
Is he saying the truth or he's not saying the truth?
Sorry?
Is he telling the truth about child marriage?
Can we do the discussion very systematically?
Yeah, you guys do it.
Systematically means point by point.
Both of you?
Well, I'm going to make the same argument,
What you're saying.
but I want to try and take some of the heat out of the discussion. Yeah, is that all right?
That's scary.
So,
If you don't mind.
so my question is, would you agree that 9-year-old children? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Your name is?
Bob.
Look for it anyway.
Bob.
So obviously you make
Bro, you made a point.
And I ask everyone, Muslims included.
Let's try and have a conversation. Yeah. The question, so I'll let you get set. Shall we go over there, maybe? Or do you want to do it here? All right.
I'm going to put the camera this side up into the sun.
Sure, of course.
Hey, bro, you going?
Older than Aisha.
Bro, where you going? Come.
just you being a
just telling the truth about Muhammad. So you got arguments, just got insults. Like your prophet. He had
Bro, we're going to have a debate. There you go. All right? So we're going to try and have a conversation about the same topic. Yeah? Let's try and take a bit of heat out of the conversation. Let's get back to discussion. Yeah? So I'm going to defend the thesis that Muhammad was a paedophile.
Amen.
Right? This brother's going to obviously defend against that thesis and argue Muhammad was not a paedophile. Everyone is served better if we listen to the arguments rather than get ourselves irate. Would you agree? Okay.